I remember one show where she fell off the beam and went back up, and I'm talking about on a layout on beam, and it was like her fifth show in a row. You know, and 5 shows in a day. I mean, in a week, and she fell off, and she got mad, got back up, and did it. And I never saw or heard a more thunderous applause.
Hey everyone, welcome to the Roe Show, where we are going to be bringing you the ups and downs of life on the road as an acrobatic influencer. We'll be bringing on guests that are leaders of the industry so you can hear their stories and learn from their ups and downs. As I travel the world to new exciting places, I'll be having the hard discussions with our guests and touch on a wide range of topics from athlete development, business of sport, social media, and even philosophy of sport, and give you a full global perspective of freestyle acrobatics. This week, we have an American coaching legend who has trained some of the top gymnasts to the Olympics and even created the internationally recognized post-Olympic show tour. Please welcome Steve Nunno to the show. We are going to discuss the making of the tour and some of the ups and downs of a large traveling production. All right, guys, let's go. Steve, thank you so much for coming on the show. Can you tell us a little bit about how you got this whole thing started?
Sure, Greg. You know, one of the things that I felt with promotion of gymnastics was that in 1984 I watched Mary Lou Retton, and I coached her for a couple of weeks at the Karolyi Ranch, or down in his camp, and John Trietta, who was a very good promoter of just everything, and he loved gymnastics. He was a great men's coach at the time. And he started doing some tours and getting great sponsors to get these venues to do these tours. So in 1984, when the American women did so well and Mary Lou won the Olympics, there was a need for that, and it really promoted the sport of gymnastics in the USA. Then in 1988, after the Olympics, no one did a tour, and we didn't have a superstar, and we didn't medal. And so there was kind of a lull there, and nothing was really promoting gymnastics. And so in 1992, when I had a gymnast named Shannon Miller on the way up, and there was a lot of promotion with another gymnast from the USA, and we had a few people that were looking at, hey, this could be a possibly another opportunity. My gymnast actually did very well in Barcelona. Her name was Shannon Miller, and she won 5 Olympic medals. And I started thinking, now is the time. Let's make Shannon, the next Mary Lou, or at least have some promotional value. And so I started. Most of the international people were friends of mine. I had been to Russia, I'd been to China, and a lot of the people from that Olympic Games were good friends. And I said, hey, I talked to Tatiana Gutz, who's coach. I said, you want to bring her over to the United States? We'll do a little tour. Sure. So once I had Shannon and Tatiana, I said, this will be fun. Then I got Svetlana Boginskaya to come, and we put together a little tour. And I did it from a phone booth in Barcelona.
A phone booth.
What was interesting was that I put together a company called Jefferson Pilot Sports, who was a regional promoter of things in the Southeast Conference, and they knew some people from San Francisco that were big tour promoters of bands. Musical bands like the Stones, and they did a lot of, national and international, tours. So basically they got together, put the tour together, got venues together, and we did, I believe, 30 cities when we came back, and put together a tour with some great, talent and a lot of fun. And it was fairly successful. It certainly made a little bit of money for everybody who was there, and certainly a lot of money for the people that were on the tour, for athletes, because really we didn't have a venue or even a way for these for these athletes to make money after the fact in gymnastics or in acrobatics. And so we put some rhythmic people in there, and it was a good moneymaker for the athletes and some of the coaches.
So did
yeah, go ahead.
Oh, sorry, yeah. Did the athletes make more money than the coaches, or was it an even split where everyone kind of takes to share the pie? Because obviously the coaches still work very hard to get the athletes there, and the administrators and everyone that puts on the events. So is it just a nice even split where everyone sort of teamed up together?
Well, no, because, like everyone, coaches, the athletes feel that they know their work, but the coaches didn't do the performances. So the coaches got paid less. And we didn't have all the coaches on tour, but we had them kind of scattered in different cities, and so we kind of shared the wealth. But the athletes certainly made more because they're the performers. And my opinion, along with John Trietta, was that these are the bands, these are the superstars, and the athletes should reap the rewards.
I agree, 100%, and that's where I was looking for something a little bit more like that back on when I was on Team Canada, and I think you were one of the first guys based on this was to really start thinking about, getting the athletes paid, because everyone who's done business long enough, at least in sport, knows that unless you're paying the athletes, it's tough to keep it going.
Well, and that's, it's also economies of scale. What resources do you have to work with? Because you've got to rent the venue, you've got to get the equipment there, you got to bus the athletes and get people from town to town, and make sure you can schedule it so that it makes sense financially. So you're not, traveling across the country from one Friday to another Saturday, be able to pull it off. You got to make sure you do it all regional. A lot of planning that's done in those tours, and you've got all your staff with your lighting and music and sound. I mean, it's quite an undertaking, and of course with those costs, and then trying to find out, okay, is anybody going to come to it? You have to project those. And so the first tour in '92 was not that profitable. It did better than break even, but at least all the athletes got paid. Then the second tour, we did a shorter one. I believe it was about 12 or 18 cities in '93, and just prior, to kind of getting the lead up. We didn't do one in '94, '95, but the '96 Olympics we had a great sponsor, national sponsor, but the federation I decided to sell it. And sell the tour and put it in the hands of the USA Gymnastics. And so then, you've got administrative costs of what's in it for us, from a federation standpoint. But it did make, after we won the Olympic medal, gold medal, it made millions.
That is very, very cool. So you started off, you basically teamed up with a music production company that kind of knew all the ins and outs, but you guys knew the athletes. You knew what kind of show to put on. So that seems like a really good partnership. One does more of the logistics, light, sound, travel, all that sort of stuff. And then you guys basically manage the athletes, which is what a coach does for competition anyway. So it was right in your wheelhouse.
Yeah, it was in a way, it wasn't in my wheelhouse. It was in John's wheelhouse because John Trietta was great, but he wasn't part of my tour. He just advised me. But at the same time, what was great was it was an independent tour, so there was no other companies to be paid, and but as a result, our show could evolve, and it got better and better. And so if an athlete fell in their tour, they could go back up and redo it, and the crowd loved that. You can't do that in the Olympics. You can't have a do-over. And we had music to every event. We had music to high bar. We had music to balance beam. It was really fun. And we kind of, skating shows, when you have music and athletics together, I mean, it was second to none, and the tours were really very successful.
That is so cool. I really wish I had gone to one of those and been able to see it develop. How much does it actually cost to put on one of the shows in a typical city? I'm sure they're all different sizes, different venues, but can you give us a rough idea of what the costs that go into something like that?
Well, it's strange because, now we're 25 years later, and so it's a lot different. But, from at the time, you had to book a number of venues if you were going to get the price down. Like if you're going to rent a venue for a certain city right now, it would cost you upwards of $50,000 just to rent the venue for a night. Now, some venues you can rent that if they're off and they have nothing planned. Some venues, in smaller towns, you can rent for even today for $20,000. But then you got to pay their security. You got to pay their people. They get the concessions. You got to pay if you want to sell your T-shirts. That's why T-shirts cost like $40 at a rock band concert, because half of it goes back to the venue. And so, some of these venues are owned by their sports authority or rented by them. Some of them are rented by the city or towns if they own them. So, but the key is to get 20 or 30 of these venues in a row, so you can get the cost down. And it's like anything; if you're buying bulk, you can get the cost down. And if they're going to repeat, if there's a repeat, because the one thing that people want from a venue, the people that are in that town, they want people to come so they can. One, it's got to be a fun thing for the city, but for the residents and the people in the town, but and especially kids. But two, they want to have the place packed, because if they can pack it in, they know that it's going to be a worthwhile event. In the first tour in '92, we'd have anywhere from 3,000 to 4,000, just kind of average. And in '96, we sold out 67 cities. 20,000 people in a venue.
20,000 times 67.
Well, that's just the ticket sales. That's not the TV. We had TV. I think 2 or 3 of, no, maybe more. Maybe 3 or 4 of the events were actually televised. So it was really quite an undertaking, but it raised a lot of money. I think just the TV part of the tour paid for the tour.
So how did you wrangle that one? Did you just march into CBC or whoever it was at the time and just say, look, we have this tour and you're going to pay for it? Because a lot of times I know that now you got to pay to get on TV more than ever before. So was it a different time? How did you guys do it?
Well, it was mainly we had contracts with NBC for the Olympics, and once we had the tour was planned, 2 years prior to the Olympics, because we were hosting it in Atlanta. We were hosting the Olympics, and NBC was involved, so they were negotiating with the promoters for which cities they were going to televise the tours.
Oh, so it was like an add-on to the Olympics.
Kind of, but it was very sports specific, because the Olympics is with, the USOPC, as you know, and the tours was just with USA Gymnastics.
Okay, so you got a sliver, but you already had the open door, so it's much easier to say, hey, look, we also got this little side thing. I think it would be good for you guys to just extend that Olympic reach.
Sure, and what I did in between, when you own an event or you are a part of owner in an event, you can decide. Sometimes you can decide take a straight cut of every a percentage of a show of what the receipts are, or you can take a guaranteed amount. And in 1994 and 95, when I decided to kind of sell it off, at least my part of it, what my athletes and what I was going to be involved in, I decided to take a guaranteed amount, because I was in the process of getting married and raising a family, and I'm like, boy, if they're going to offer me that much, I'll take that. Because there was no guarantee how successful it would be. You know, if we didn't win the Olympic gold medal, I don't think we would have even done, 50 cities. And we ended up doing over 90.
Jesus. That is really, really cool. So then what happens when you start to sell it? So you obviously changing your gears a little bit. You're thinking long term, which I think is actually a better decision. We get a lot of young kids that ask us how to deal with sponsors, and we tell them take a guarantee until you're going to get something, because otherwise they're just going to nickel and dime you and there's no guarantees. So I like the fact that you took that guarantee to make sure you had a nice stable platform to build on. But then when you started getting out, what was the discussions like with that? How'd that go?
Well, my decision was, as most family decisions are, I was about ready to get married, and we were going to, I had plenty of other gyms and other jobs. I didn't need to be running a tour on top of everything. I didn't do half the work. I mean, I just provided athletes and provided, some guidance on how the training would go. But I let each coach make their own deal with the tour. I let every athlete make their own deal. My athlete was one of the stars of the show, so she made her own deal with her own agent. I never wanted to be in anybody's. I didn't want to be in control of anyone's financial, situation. And they could make their own decision, even if they wanted to be on it or not. So when the federation got involved, I decided that it would be better for me just cut my own deal, make sure that whatever's good for me and with our sponsorship, and I just provide some guidance, and that's all I did. So it was a lot less on my shoulders as far as work goes, because there was no guarantee, that it would even happen, because it didn't happen in 94 or 95. So I thought the guarantee was a good way to go. In the end, I would have made millions, but it was very successful for me, and I was proud to be a part of it.
Well, it's good. Seems it was very successful. I was just talking to Logan Dooley the other day for the show as well, and he was discussing how much he loved it. And for him, it was like a nice sort of, I don't know what they call a victory lap. You come back from the Olympics, and now you get to really kind of bask in the glory without as much pressure. And I think that's where the athletes really enjoy it. It allows them to kind of be the stars, where in competition, you don't feel like a star. You feel like you're about to die under a lot of pressure a lot of the times. So I think it's a nice way to balance it out and show the happy, positive side of the athletic lifestyle rather than just the hardcore training all the time,
Correct. And, but one of the things that I decided on our tours, the ones I was involved with, was that we were not going to be watering down routines. What people wanted to see was their actual Olympic routine with the big tricks and but they wanted to see it up close and in person. And what had happened in previous tours that people had done were that they were just, here I am, I'm a superstar anyway, so I'm just going to water it down. And, I felt that was cheating the audience, so I didn't let that happen on our tour, and we made sure as coaches, I made the coaches understand that, hey, we want to make sure that these kids are doing their big stuff. And that's why they get paid. It's kind of like singers, you go to a concert and if they're lip syncing, and you don't even want to see the concert. But if they're putting their heart and soul out there on stage, it's moving.
Well, I remember a New Year's Eve or something like that. They had all the stuff on television, and I remember I don't remember the rapper Sean Desmond or something, and he was just lip syncing and just was boring. But then you had the Smashing Pumpkins on the next channel, and they were giving it all. They were sweating and actually playing the music, and I always remember that as being a really interesting sort of dichotomy between the kind of cheat your show versus really give it all and actually enjoy doing it. Did the athletes enjoy that? Because we talked to Cirque, and they watered down the routines more for safety and for guaranteed results. So did you have any backlash when you proposed this to the athletes or the other coaches?
it's kind of funny. I was just watching the special on Michael Jordan and how he gave 100% every practice, and he was putting the pressure on all his athletes every day, and everybody thought he was a jerk. I was that guy. I was the one saying, no, we're not going to just do a full twist at the end of your floor routine. No, then I'm not putting you up. You're not going to go out on the show. You're going to go out there every night. And Shannon Miller was the one that did it. I mean, she wanted to do the bigger skills, wanted to show it, and it was hard every night. Can you imagine? I mean, we did 5 shows, 6 shows a week. That's 6 meets. But you didn't have to do all 4 events. And there was some other fun things that they did, some dance and some other things that, were not as stressful. But I remember one show where she fell off the beam and went back up. And I'm talking about on a layout on beam. And it was like her 5th show in a row. And 5 shows in a week. And she fell off, and she got mad, got back up, and did it. And I never saw or heard a more thunderous applause. And those people didn't know that she was tired, but she was not going to fall. And she became, because of the 92 tour, she became a fierce competitor because nothing could shake her. If you do 30 cities, and that's like 30 meets, you can compete like nobody.
That's an interesting point.
Yeah. She learned to be a fierce competitor.
That is very cool. It's almost like you should have some kind of mini Rising Stars program tour for young kids. Like they have, I think, Pee Wee Hockey League. I think they did with Brampton Battalions, which is like a OHL, Ontario Hockey League up here. And they have little kids that come up, and during the halftime show, they play a little fun game. These are 3, 4, 5-year-olds, just playing around. It's just fun and cute. But you could do that with athletes, like gymnastics athletes, and get them doing stuff. So right before they even start worrying about competition, they're already just getting used to being in front of a crowd. They're already dealing with the competition anxiety before the competition even matters. And it might be a way to reframe the whole thing and help get kids out of that fear of competing. Would that make any sense?
Well, it does. I think it's very important. This is, my personal belief. It's opposite of what the program is right now, where they only compete, 2 or 3 times a year. These kids were competing 30 times on a tour, and they didn't have to do every event. But I think it really builds a confidence and especially being in front of a crowd. If you're not in front of a crowd, then one, it's not as much fun because these people are appreciating your hard work and your abilities, but also it gives you a different atmosphere when you're in an arena than if you're competing, let's say at your own gym or just doing routines over and over again. It's a little different and it's definitely a lot more rewarding for the athlete.
Yeah, I would agree. For me, I never really liked competing too much, and I haven't been shy about that. But I think that if I had got used to it more as a kid, and like what you said, just did more numbers, and maybe didn't have that pressure, just being in front of people rather than thinking that you have to win. We used to do little exhibitions at the mall, and that was just to promote our gym club. And I think a lot of people did that one. And we just did little handstand walks. We basically did our warm-ups and our basic training just on the rod floor set up in the middle of the mall. And I didn't mind that. I didn't mind people watching. And I think if coaches were able to find different creative ways to do that a little bit more often, I think, like you said, it's just a numbers game. And that's no different from just doing more crosses or more routines versus just more time in front of people. I think it's like a muscle. You build it and it just gets stronger the more you do it.
Well, and I think that's part of the fun. Part of the fun of doing athletics is not just competing, but just showing other people what you can do. Look, Mom, look what I can do. Now, show my friends, show some strangers and see how they like it. But I always felt like that was one of the benefits to my training program is I went over to Russia. I went over to China. I went overseas to get, and we stole a lot of ideas too, but, I wanted to have an international flair to my athletes so that anytime they compete overseas, we were there. And to see the world. You're not just sitting in your four walls trying to learn a new trick. You want to get out there and meet other athletes from different countries and meet other people and see the world. And that's what we did when I was the coaching the USA team.
That's really interesting, and we're seeing that a lot now more with the kids, where they're not so worried about the competition. They're more worried about where they're traveling to compete, where they can go and hang out if it's Japan or this, that, or the other. And we're seeing the new generation that really is pushing for that sort of traveling and life experiences more than just let me build my resume. So I think for coaches who are, trying to build a good team, I think they need to start, at least in the 21st century when traveling is becoming a lot more accessible, they need to kind of almost put that into their training program as part of the program rather than just thinking of it as once you're done competing, then you can go tour around. But the actual touring around, I think, is a motivator. And that in itself then becomes part of the program, and it becomes a sort of all-encompassing sort of strategy rather than just separating conditioning, flexibility, and then repetitions, and then go tour after. No, it's the touring, I think, and that fun aspect and just getting in front of people is part of the whole package.
Well, and now it's so costly to actually have a place to do that. To have a venue and overseas, and who knows what this the COVID-19 is going to produce in not having a crowd at all, maybe no spectators for a long time. You don't know, how it's going to be, but it was certainly a rewarding experience for us.
That definitely sounds like I really wish I was there. Before we go, can you let us know maybe what is one of the most toughest moments of that tour that you remember? So maybe when things just really weren't going right and how you guys maybe overcame it and fixed it in the last minute? Because I know these live events they're always go, 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 like you're a crazy person. Do you have any funny stories to share with us?
Well, it was funny because you do 90 cities, and in 4 months' time, that's a lot of repetition, and you'd wake up and you wouldn't remember which town you're in, and it was almost like that movie, Groundhog's Day, where it's the same thing over and over again, and the athletes would just have to go and do the same routine over and over. They had their spot. But I tried to explain to them, it's kind of like Broadway. You've got your role, and try to get a little better at it. Try to enjoy your role in this big production, and see if you can make the show just click on all cylinders. So after like the 10th show, they had it down. It was just great. And then the fatigue sets in, where you're just mentally and physically drained and just want to go home. Even though you're getting paid a lot of money, you don't see it. It usually goes into your bank account or something. You don't see the kick. But, the toughest part was when everybody is, you're all together. First of all, you're all competitors against each other until you're part of the team. And usually you're part of the team for about 3 weeks for the Olympics, and then you go home. Well, now you're living with these people, and you're traveling with these people, and you and eating with these people, and sometimes it gets a little, like even your family. How long can you stay together in these times? So that was the toughest time. Was trying to make sure that you would get along as a family, and anytime there was a flare up or something that you went and did something fun instead of just the same old thing. So that was the only tough time about it. And in the end, it was just sad that it was ending, because you knew that might be the end of this whole, it might be for many kids, it was the end of their career.
Well, yeah, you got to enjoy it while you last it. What they say, YOLO, you only live once, and then you got to make the most out of it. And so was that your basic strategy when times got tough and obviously tensions are high with lots of pressure and lots of money on the line? Was that your basic strategy, was when everyone just is clearly having a bad day in the office, let's all go out and go to the beach or go grab some beers or just get our heads out of the office? You know, was that the basic strategy?
Well, you know, everybody liked to do something different, so it was hard to get everybody wrapped around, you know, doing the same thing. But if we could bring in like a celebrity from the town to come in, and or you know, an NFL player or an NBA player, our tour managers had a lot of famous people that they knew, and so that every once in a while, if they just happened, some of the agents did too, they'd bring somebody that happened to be, you know, performing also in the city over to meet them, or we could go see their show. You know, as soon as we were done with our show, we could go over and see their show. So that was fun, like in Las Vegas and some of the cities like that. So that broke up a little bit of it. But from the coach, from the coach's standpoint, you know, we all had, you know, businesses and family at home, so there wasn't a lot of coaches that came on that many, you know, of the city tours.
So yeah, it's all about that, you know, athlete management and just managing your time, making sure that you can kind of break things up, just like training. You know, you can only do so many repetitions on one vault or one set of rings for that day, and it's up to the coach to really know, okay guys, let's just change the stimulus here and just do something else. We can always come back to it. And it sounds like you guys did a really good job at managing that whole thing and really got that thing off the ground.
Yeah, it was a great time, and you know, it's unfortunate that it hasn't been going on for, you know, every year. But kind of like Cirque du Soleil, you know, they've had to change up the shows and they've had to do so many things. It was hard for them to travel with the show. And how many people, once you've seen a Cirque show, do you want to see it again? Or a different show, you know? And so the gymnastics tour, but it was great for kids, and it was great inspiration for kids. And it's been unfortunate, all the little, you know, negatives that we've had in our sport recently, that it's been difficult for those athletes that were on those teams. But for the most part, you know, maybe there'll be another tour, maybe with Simone. She's kind of planning the tour. I think it'd be great if, you know, she does well in the next Olympics and they can promote us again.
Yeah, I think so. I think it's just a matter of, again, repetition. Just, you know, always a new campaign, always a new sort of selling point, and make it a different type of show. And maybe there you can team up with Cirque and stuff. Like, there's so many options. It just takes people to kind of put their heads together and come up with something, you know?
Right.
Yep. All right, well,
Greg.
Thanks a lot, Steve, for taking the time to chit-chat to us about how we've developed that tour and everything. And let's hope that they can bring it back another year. And we'll get you back on the show a little bit later. Maybe we can discuss more about actual coaching philosophies and stuff like that. But thank you for your time.
Sounds good.
Well, I hope you guys enjoyed and learned a few things. There's a big world out there worth exploring, and I'm happy to be able to bring these great experiences right to you through this podcast. If you enjoyed this podcast and learned something, please share and take a screen grab of our funky cartoons and hashtag GRT certified for a chance to win a shout out to our community. Also, please leave us a review to be part of helping this information get out into the industry. It's much appreciated. Along with these podcasts, we have a large online content hub that we call the GRT Network, with many other interviews and full tutorials and written content discussing everything about acrobatics. We will be constantly growing this archive of videos like a cross between Netflix and Wikipedia for anyone in the acrobatic industry. We also have a complete online educational program for athletes of all levels that provides a do-it-yourself pathway to success for any acrobat. Check out our constantly growing library of playlists that will teach you anything from tightening up your social media, to how to get around fear, to even learning all the biology that underlies all your acrobatic skills. We work very hard with our team around the world to provide this exclusive content for you, and appreciate any donations made to the FTA to help keep these episodes coming at you. And if you want all the content, become a GRT Network full member to get exclusive content before everyone else and access to special discounts and giveaways through our amazing global partners. Thanks guys, see you next episode.